You are not failing to manifest. You are simply making the law far more complicated than it needs to be. The moment you assume that your desire is already fulfilled, you begin to think, speak, and move from that position. So stop trying so hard, stop forcing things, stop checking every little sign. Simply assume that it is finished. Good evening, my friends. You know, I have been teaching this principle for many years now. And during all that time, I have watched thousands of people come into these meetings with notebooks in their hands, ready to discover the hidden secrets of manifestation. And do you know what I keep seeing? You make it complicated. You make it harder than it has to be. You become buried beneath techniques, surrounded by methods, and trapped by rules that you believe you must follow perfectly or everything will fail. Meanwhile, the answer is right in front of you. It is simple, it is beautiful. It is almost too obvious to notice because you are searching for something deeper, something more difficult, something that feels like a secret. Tonight, I want to remove all of that. I want to take away the techniques, the methods, the complicated routines, and the endless questions. I want to bring you back to the one principle underneath everything. And I promise you, when you truly hear it, when you allow it to settle deeply within you, you may actually laugh because of how simple it is. You may wonder how you managed to overlook it for so long. Assume it is done. That is the principle. That is the law. It is not merely another technique. It is not another method to add to your collection. It is the foundation beneath them all. So stay with me, because the next part may change the way you approach everything you have been practicing. Now, before you say, that is too simple, I already know that, let me ask you something important. If you truly knew it, if you really understood it at the deepest level, would you still be searching for the perfect technique? Would you still be asking which method works the fastest? Would you still be worried about whether your visualization was done correctly, whether your words were exactly right, or whether you repeated something enough times? No, you would not. Because when this principle becomes real to you, something inside you changes. It clicks. It becomes something you cannot unknow. Suddenly, techniques become optional. Methods become flexible. Rules lose their power over you. You stop feeling that one tiny mistake can destroy everything. You become free. And that freedom is what many of you are missing right now. You know the words, but you have not fully entered the state behind the words. You have learned the ideas, but you are still looking outside yourself for confirmation. Tonight, I want to show you exactly why that happens. I want to uncover the trap that keeps you caught in endless effort, endless checking, and endless trying. Then, I want to give you the key that can help you step out of that trap. So for a moment, put the notebook down. You do not need to memorize every sentence. You do not need to analyze every word. Just listen. Let the idea breathe. Because what I am about to explain could save you years of unnecessary struggle, confusion, and effort. And if you understand this one point, you may never approach manifestation in quite the same way again. Let me show you where so many people become stuck. You come looking for the perfect method. You want the right technique, the secret formula, the exact routine that will finally make everything happen. And there is nothing wrong with wanting guidance. I understand it completely. We have all wanted certainty. We have all wondered whether there was one special thing we had missed. But here is the part you are overlooking, and please listen carefully because this can save you years of frustration. The technique is never the true cause. Your consciousness is the cause. Your assumption is the cause. The state you occupy is what matters. You can repeat the same words 100 times, but if you continue identifying with the opposite of what you desire, the words themselves do not become the answer. You can write pages and pages in a journal, but if you keep returning to fear and doubt as your normal identity, the writing becomes another exercise instead of a change in state. You can visualize every night, but if you wake up each morning immediately searching for evidence that nothing has changed, you are returning to the old position. The method is simply a doorway. The state is what matters. And once you understand that, you stop worshiping the doorway and start entering the room. That is the shift. That is the difference. Stay with me because this is where the whole subject becomes much easier. Over the years, I have shared many different ways of entering the state of the wish fulfilled. There is the state akin to sleep, where you allow yourself to become relaxed and accept the feeling of your desire already being real. There is revision, where you change the meaning of an old experience in your imagination. There is the thankful heart, where gratitude becomes the natural response of someone who already feels blessed. There is living in the end, where you stop focusing on the journey and begin identifying with the completed result. There are mental diets, where you become more careful about the thoughts you repeatedly accept as true. And some of you have taken these helpful tools and turned them into strict laws of your own. You have transformed simple techniques into superstitions. You say, I have to repeat it exactly 3 times. It only works if I do it at bedtime. What if I use the wrong words? What if I fall asleep before finishing? What if I miss one day? What if I do the visualization incorrectly? No, no, no. You have completely missed the purpose. The technique was never meant to become another prison. These methods are simply different doors leading into the same room. The room is the state of your wish fulfilled. That is where you want to enter. Imagine a beautiful room. Inside it is the experience of already having what you desire. It exists perfectly in your imagination. It is complete, it is peaceful, it is natural. And there are many doors into this room. There is the SAT's door, the revision door, the affirmation door, the scripting door, and many other doors you may discover along the way. But remember this, you do not need to worship the door. You simply need to enter the room. Different doors, yes, but every one of them leads into the exact same room. And they work when they work because they accomplish one thing and one thing only. They change your assumption. That is it. That is the entire mechanism. SATs does not work because there is some special magic in imagining before sleep. It works when it helps move you into the state of the wish fulfilled. It gets you into that room. Revision does not work because you are literally changing history. You are not. What happened has happened. Revision works because changing the way you hold an old event in your mind can change your present assumption about yourself and about your world. Affirmations do not work because the words themselves contain some special power. They work when they shift your consciousness from wanting into having. Do you see it now? The technique is the vehicle. The assumption is the destination. And most of you have become so focused on the vehicle that you have forgotten where you are actually going. Let me tell you what I see happening. And please do not take this as criticism. I'm saying it because I want you to succeed. You come to these teachings and collect techniques like someone collecting stamps. I know SATs, I know revision, I know mental diet, I know the ladder technique. Then you use them with desperation, hoping one of them will finally work. You do your SATs at night, but while you are doing it, your mind is saying, please work, please let this work. I need this to happen. What if it does not work? Can you see the problem? You are using the technique, but you are not occupying the state. You are not assuming it is done. You are assuming it is not done and hoping the technique will somehow force it to become done. And if your deepest assumption remains, it is not here yet, that is the state you keep returning to. The scene you imagine is not the whole story. The state you actually occupy is what matters. Stay with me because this next point is where many people finally understand what has been holding them back. Then, when nothing seems to change, what happens? You blame the method. Satis does not work for me. Maybe I need something stronger. Maybe I need another technique. No, the technique did not betray you. You simply misunderstood its purpose. The technique is not the power. You are the power. Your consciousness is the power. Your assumption is the creative force within your experience. The technique is only a tool that can help you shift that assumption. But if you are using the tool while secretly holding on to the old story, the tool cannot do the inner work for you. This is where things become painful to watch because then you become rigid. You become superstitious. You turn simple practices into complicated rituals. I must loop exactly 3 times. It only works at night. I have to use these exact words. I must be lying down. I cannot move once I begin. And the list goes on and on. You have taken one simple principle, assume it is done, and covered it with a mountain of unnecessary rules. Think about how exhausting that is. You are supposed to feel free. yet you have created another system that makes you afraid of making a mistake. Let me tell you something. I have shifted my state while walking down the street, while sitting quietly in a chair, while waiting in a grocery line. Why? Because I understood that perfect conditions are not the source. The state is the source. If I can assume it is done, if I can make it feel natural, if I can occupy that inner position with conviction, then I do not need a perfect room, a perfect hour, or a perfect routine. I simply need to accept the fulfilled state. That is the heart of it. And once you understand this, you can stop making manifestation feel like a difficult performance. Then there are those of you who move from technique to technique. You try SATs for a week. Nothing seems to happen, so you jump to revision. You practice revision for a few days. Still nothing obvious changes, so you switch to scripting. Scripting does not move quickly enough, so you try affirmations. Affirmations feel different, so you return to SATs. But now you add another element you discovered somewhere, then another, always searching, always comparing, always looking for something more powerful, something faster, something easier. And do you know what the real tragedy is? You already have what you need. You do not need some advanced method hidden from you. You do not need a secret technique waiting to be revealed. You need to stop searching for another door and walk through the one already standing in front of you. Because every door, every single one, leads to the same place. A changed assumption. That is the destination. Pick one method if it helps you. Any method that naturally helps you enter the feeling of already having. Then understand what that method is actually doing. It is shifting your assumption. That is its purpose. Master that understanding, and you will no longer feel dependent on collecting techniques. You will no longer think your power disappears because you missed one ritual. This is where the simplicity returns. This is where the pressure begins to leave. So keep listening, because we are getting to the part that can completely change your relationship with these practices. Now, here is what saddens me most. In all your searching, all your collecting of techniques, all your strict rules, all your desperate effort, you miss the beautiful simplicity that has been there from the beginning. Assume it is done. That is the principle. Not another technique, not another complicated method. The principle itself. Consciousness is the foundation of your experience. What you consistently accept as true about yourself shapes the way you experience your world. What you become conscious of being becomes the state from which you live. That is the whole teaching. Everything else, every technique, every method, every practice I have ever discussed is simply another way of helping you make one movement within yourself. You move from I want it to I have it, from hoping to knowing, from waiting to accepting, from desire to possession, from reaching towards something to becoming the person for whom it feels natural. When you understand this deeply, something changes. You stop being controlled by techniques. You stop worrying about whether you perform them perfectly. You stop searching for the one magical method because you finally understand that the technique does not create. Consciousness creates your inner experience, and your assumption determines the state you occupy. That is why the simplest practice can sometimes be more powerful than the most complicated routine. It is not because the routine is weak, it is because the meaning you give it matters. You are the one entering the state. You are the one accepting the assumption. And that is the part no technique can replace. Let me show you what begins to happen when this understanding truly takes root. You become free, completely free, free from rigidity. You are no longer trapped by rules about exactly how a practice must be performed. You understand that the outer form is secondary. The assumption is what matters. So you can do your imaginal act while sitting in a chair. You can imagine while walking, if that feels natural. You can practice at noon instead of bedtime. You can repeat a scene once, 10 times, or not repeat it at all if you have already entered the feeling you wanted. Why? Because you understand that the technique itself is not doing the creating. Your assumption is what you are changing. And you can shift that assumption anywhere, at any time, in whatever way helps you most naturally in that moment. Think about the relief in that. You do not need to wait for the perfect hour. You do not need special conditions. You do not need to be afraid of doing something incorrectly. You can simply return to the state, free from superstition, You are no longer terrified that missing one night of practice will destroy your progress. You are no longer worried that you used the wrong words or imagined the scene from the wrong angle. You are no longer checking every few minutes to see whether something has changed. You begin to understand that the purpose was never to perform a ritual perfectly. The purpose was to change the place from which you are living. And once you truly understand that, the pressure starts to disappear. You know that consciousness is the only reality, and as long as you are holding the assumption of the wish fulfilled, as long as you remain in that state, manifestation becomes inevitable within the logic of this teaching. The particular vehicle you choose to reach that state is not the important part. Free yourself from dependence on methods. This is a major shift. When you truly understand that assumption is the law, you realize that you do not actually require a technique in order to change your inner state. Yes, techniques can help. They can be useful. They can make the process easier, especially while you are learning how to direct your attention. But you are not dependent on them. You are not powerless without them. You can shift your assumption right now, this very moment. You do not have to close your eyes. You do not have to lie down. You do not need a special room, a perfect mood, or a formal routine. You can simply decide that it is done. Say within yourself, I accept it as done in consciousness right now. And if you can genuinely enter that state, if you can accept it as natural and real within your imagination, then you have already done the essential part. The technique was never the source of your power. It was training wheels. It helped you learn how to ride. But eventually, you realize you can move forward on your own. And here is how you can tell when this understanding has truly become yours. You stop asking, which technique should I use? Which one is strongest? Which one will bring results the fastest? Instead, you begin asking a much better question. What am I assuming right now? That question takes you straight to the heart of the matter. Keep listening, because this small change in the way you question yourself can completely transform how you approach the law. You begin to ask, is my current assumption aligned with what I desire? Am I assuming I already have it? Or am I assuming I am still waiting for it? Am I living from the state of the wish fulfilled? Or am I standing outside that state hoping it will eventually become real? That shift in your question changes everything, because now you are looking at the right thing. Not the method, but the state. Not the vehicle, but the destination. Not the technique, but your consciousness. You begin checking your assumption during the ordinary moments of your day. While you are walking, while you are working, while you are sitting quietly. You ask, what am I accepting is true right now? And if you notice that you have slipped into an old assumption, you do not panic. You do not say, oh no, I have ruined everything. You do not turn one doubtful thought into another long battle. You simply notice it and gently return. Ah, I was assuming lack. Let me return to the assumption of having. That is all. You shift and continue. You return and continue. You do not need to punish yourself. You do not need to start over from zero. You simply choose the state again. This is what mastery looks like. It is not about performing the perfect technique every single time. It is about learning to return to the assumption that supports the life you want to experience. The goal is not perfection in practice. The goal is greater awareness of the state you are occupying. And once you understand that, your relationship with every technique becomes lighter, calmer, and much more natural. Now, some of you may still be thinking, but I want to learn more advanced techniques. I want the secret method that has not been revealed yet. I want something stronger. And I am telling you as clearly as I can, you do not need a more advanced method. You need a deeper understanding of the simple principle behind every method. There is no secret technique being kept from you. There is no hidden formula that will suddenly remove every doubt and make everything effortless. There is only this: consciousness is the foundation of your experience, and the assumptions you repeatedly accept can shape the way you experience your world. Assume it is done. That is the principle. That is the center of the teaching. Now, understand it. Really understand it. Let it become something you practice through your awareness rather than something you merely repeat with your mouth. Once that understanding becomes deep within you, every technique becomes something you can use freely. without fear, and without dependence. You can use SATs if you enjoy it. It can be a beautiful way to enter a relaxed state and imagine from the end. You can use revision if it feels meaningful to you. It can help you change the way you relate to an old experience and therefore change your present inner state. You can affirm, you can script, you can visualize, you can imagine the end, or you can use none of these things at all. Why? Because you finally understand that the technique is not the power. The method is not the creator. Your inner assumption is what you are changing. And when you genuinely accept something as fulfilled in consciousness, you have reached the central point of the practice. You are no longer waiting for the technique to give you permission to feel fulfilled. You are choosing the fulfilled state first. That is the real shift. Here is another way you will know whether you have truly understood tonight's message. Tomorrow morning when you wake up, you will not immediately ask, what technique should I perform today? How many times should I repeat my scene? Which method is best for this desire? Instead, you will pause and ask, what am I assuming about this situation right now? Am I assuming it is already resolved, or am I assuming it is still unfinished? Am I identifying with having, or am I identifying with waiting? And if you discover that you are living from the feeling of waiting, you will not need to create a complicated routine. You can shift right there. It is done. I accept it as finished in consciousness. Then breathe. Let the pressure leave. Allow yourself to feel the relief of no longer chasing. Let certainty replace the constant need to check. Let peace become more familiar. You do not have to force yourself into some dramatic emotional state. You simply return to the inner position you have chosen. Then you move through your day from that assumption, not because you completed a ritual, but because you are occupying a state. That is the difference. And when this becomes natural, you will notice something beautiful. You spend less time asking whether you are doing it correctly and more time simply living. You stop measuring every hour. You stop searching for signs every few minutes. You stop turning the process into a test. You become more settled. You become more certain. You begin to understand that the most important movement is happening within you. And that is when you can say, now I understand. You have moved beyond collecting techniques and begun to understand the principle underneath them all. So this is my gift to you tonight, this understanding. Use the techniques if they help you. I have shared them because they can be useful tools for shifting your attention and entering a new state of mind, but do not worship them. Do not become trapped by them. Do not imagine that your power disappears when you cannot perform them perfectly. The technique is not the power. You are the one choosing the assumption. Your consciousness is the creative center of your inner world. And the essential movement is simple. Assume your desire is fulfilled. Do not merely hope that it will happen. Do not spend every moment trying to force it into existence. Do not keep telling yourself that someday you will finally have it. Practice accepting the fulfilled state now, already done, already accepted within consciousness. That is the heart of it. Everything else you have learned can be understood as another way of helping you return to this one simple movement. So tonight, when you go home, you can use your favorite practice if you want. You can enter a quiet state before sleep. You can revise your day. You can write in your journal from the end. You can repeat an affirmation. You can visualize a short scene that represents fulfillment. But while you do it, remember what the practice is actually for. The technique is not creating your reality by itself. It is helping you change your assumption. And if you can assume it is done, if you can accept it as done, if you can genuinely feel the peace of no longer waiting, then the door you use to enter the room becomes less important. You are already there in the state of the wish fulfilled. You are no longer standing outside asking when you can enter. You have entered. And from this point you can move through life with a different inner attitude. So remember this: when doubt tries to pull you backward, return to the state, return to the assumption, return to the feeling of already being there. That is where the real simplicity begins. And once you understand that, you may discover that you are never missing another technique. You are simply being invited to trust the principle beneath them all.